What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today it is a very special day because today Star Wars Squadrons is finally here and I'm going to be bringing you guys my very first guide covering the game. This video was made possible by the EA Game Changers program. A massive thank you to EA for giving us the opportunity to get these videos out a little bit early. I've been absolutely grinding away on this game over the last couple of days to get these videos out for you guys, and there are plenty more on the way. Now obviously this is titled as beginner tips, and the ironic part is that we are literally all beginners at this game. I'm a beginner too, so it's a bit weird kind of giving beginner tips when I'm also a beginner myself, but these are some of the things that really stood out to me from either the first playtest that we did or from getting my hands on the game just a little bit early. And I've pretty much just curated this list to try and give you guys a tiny bit of an edge in the early days of the game's lifespan. We're all going to be new to the game, there's going to be a pretty steep learning curve, but I think some of these tips are going to help you guys get over that learning curve just a little bit faster than the average player. So if they do end up helping you out, then be sure to smash that like button, and if you are new around here, consider subscribing with those notifications on, as there will be plenty more Squadrons content on the way. But with that out of the way, guys, let's get stuck into these 10 beginner tips for Star Wars Squadrons. The first tip I'm going to give is a super obvious one just to get it out of the way, and that is that you should definitely give the campaign a go, as it is filled with tips and tricks of its own, essentially acting as a huge tutorial for the multiplayer section of the game. Now don't let that fool you, the campaign is actually really solid from what I've played so far. The storyline seems pretty interesting and the missions are a lot of fun, so it's not like it's a glorified tutorial or anything like that. It is a solid campaign, but it is still filled with a ton of tips, and I could not recommend playing it enough. It'll not only teach you about how your starfighter works, how the HUD elements work, and a heap of stuff like that, but it does also just allow you to play as each and every class, mess around with your components, and even teaches you certain mechanics like drifting, for example. I know for most people they're going to want to get stuck straight into multiplayer. I felt the exact same, but I cannot recommend it enough to at least just play the first 4 or 5 missions of the campaign before jumping into your first game of dogfights. Moving on to tip number 2, and this one is to avoid stopping on the spot with your starfighter. In this game you can come to a complete halt in your starfighter, meaning you're just sitting in one spot rather than constantly moving, and for me I found myself constantly doing this the first few times I played, as I was used to the controls of Battlefront 2's Starfighter Assault. In that game, when you slow down completely, you're still on the move, so when I jumped into Squadrons I was trying to just slow down to a really slow speed all the time, but then I realised that I was literally just stopping on the spot. And at that point you're just a complete sitting duck open to attack by your enemies. Maybe it was just me doing this, but I do have a feeling that a lot of people are going to accidentally do the same thing, and so if you do find yourself stopping, be sure to get into the habit of always staying on the move. Moving on to tip number 3, and this one is that you should 100% learn how to boost drift as soon as you possibly can. Boost drifting in this game allows you to just change direction extremely fast compared to what you would if you were turning normally, and the sooner you can learn it, the better off you will be. Boost drifting is taught in the campaign, so again, definitely go and play that, but for those who don't, you can boost drift by doing the following. First, you need to be boosted so that you're going extremely fast, and then once you are boosted, if you press and hold boost again while also changing direction, your starfighter will essentially just go into a sort of free fall until you do speed up in a new direction you're headed. As you can see by the gameplay on screen, once you do get the hang of it, you can turn some really tight corners and improve your movement tenfold, which will be huge when you're playing in multiplayer. It did take me a minute to get the hang of it, so I would definitely recommend just practicing over and over again, as I think it's going to be an absolute key to success very early in the game's lifespan. Moving on to tip number 4, and this one is to do with your starfighter's shields. All of the New Republic classes, as well as the TIE Reaper on the Imperial side, have shields available for use. By default, these shields are essentially just protecting your entire starfighter, but you can actually customize them a little bit more and direct the shield power either to the front or the back of your ship depending on the situation. If your starfighter does have shields, you can hold the square button on PS4 or X on Xbox, and it brings up a little menu for you to choose where to put the power. Once you are in that menu, up on the left stick diverts all power to the front, down on the stick diverts all the power to the back. Now a little tip that's even more useful though is that you actually don't have to hold down X or square to change that power diversion. If you want all the power to go to your rear shield, simply hold back on the left stick while you're flying and then press X or square, and that will put all the power to the back, as you can see on the shield display within your cockpit. Hold forward and press X or square and the power will go to the front. Now to reset it to be even between the front and the back, simply press X or square only, and that will just reset it back to normal. normal, and this will save you a ton of time that you likely won't have if you're needing to mess around with your shields. Now moving on to tip number 5, and this one is actually pretty much the exact same but for the TIE Interceptor and TIE Bomber, which are all without shields. Seeing as they can't divert any shield power, the X button on Xbox or square button on PS4 actually works a little bit different. Let's just say you've been shooting at a capital ship and you completely overheat your weapons, meaning you can't fire anymore until they cool down, but you really need to shoot a turret in front of you that's almost dead. Then what you can do is bring up that menu again and divert all of the available power in your starfighter to those weapons, meaning it'll actually drain your engine power and re-energize your weapons, instantly cooling down your blasters and having them ready for use straight away. Now the same actually goes the other way around too. Let's just say you're getting chased and you really need to get away from the enemy but you're completely out of boost. Well, divert all that power to the engines rather than the weapons and bang, you instantly have a full boost at your disposal, seemingly out of nowhere. This tip is a little bit more advanced and I will actually be doing a deep dive into the entire power management system in another video a few days from now, so I will go into depth a little bit more in that one, but hopefully this tip can help you guys out in a pinch if you really need a boost or really need those weapons at the ready. Moving on to tip number 6, this one is a really quick one, and this is that you can actually do timed obstacle courses in the practice mode. These take you on a quick path around the map and force you to squeeze through some really tight areas to get to the next checkpoint, and I found this to be really helpful in getting the hang of the maneuverability for each starfighter. I would definitely recommend giving this a crack early on, probably with an interceptor to start out with, as this is going to help a lot with getting the feel for each ship and can even help you practice those boost drifts as well. Moving on to tip number 7, and this is another fairly obvious one, but it's definitely worth giving each starfighter a solid amount of practice and trying to get the hang of each and every one. I can almost guarantee that early on you're going to see the interceptor class become the meta, as they're by far the easiest to get the hang of. However, do not fall into that trap. Yes, they might be the easiest, but in my opinion they likely won't be the best once everyone has gotten a hang of the other classes, so don't lock yourself into getting the hang of them early on, as there's a good chance that the other classes will feel really hard to play once you are used to the interceptor, despite the fact that those other classes might actually end up being better. Moving on to tip number 8, this one is to do with the quote-unquote sweet spot of your starfighter. In Battlefront 2, in order to turn the fastest, you had to have the throttle all the way back, essentially going as slow as you can in order to turn at the fastest speed. Well, in Star Wars Squadrons, the principle is the same, but it's not 100% the same either. On your throttle indicator in the cockpit, regardless of which starfighter you're using, you can see a little area on that throttle where it kind of sticks out more than the rest, and that is regarded as the sweet spot. When you're traveling at that speed, that is actually when you'll turn the fastest, not when you're traveling at the slowest speed possible like in Battlefront 2. The sweet spot is actually indicated even further by some beeping sounds within the cockpit, so once you get the hang of it, you almost don't even need to look at all. You can just play it by ear, and once you hear those beeps, you know you're going to be in the sweet spot in order to be able to maneuver as fast as possible. Moving on to tip number 9, which is a really quick and simple one, and this is that you can actually still look around your cockpit and out the windows without needing a VR headset. Simply double tap the R3 button, and this makes the right stick then move the camera rather than moving the ship itself, meaning you can take a look around if you need to, then simply press R3 again to go back to normal. Now last but not least, the final tip I have is to make sure you're not countering missiles too early. Once someone locks onto you, you'll get this warning that you can see on screen, and the more arrows there are, the closer the missile is to your starfighter. Now the initial reaction is to just instantly deploy those countermeasures, which is done with either circle or B, but what you should actually be doing is waiting until the missile is a little bit closer, as deploying the countermeasures too early can just render it completely useless and the missile will stay locked on. This is definitely something that I struggled with early on, and hopefully now you guys won't have to make the same mistake. So that is going to do it for my initial 10 tips for Star Wars Squadrons. Hopefully some of these tips did help you guys out, as there is a pretty big learning curve in this game, and I think we're all going to need as many tips as we can get. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to leave a like down below, and if you are new, then consider subscribing to the channel with those notifications on. There is going to be a ton of content on the way covering Star Wars Squadrons. I think I'm all in on this game right now, and I'm going to be pumping out 3 videos a week minimum for the foreseeable future, so I hope to see you guys around the channel. Thank you all so much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.
Crush them! Make them suffer!